I was going to say, and Melissa is a friend of mine. I came into my job in 2014, and at that point in time, many of you know there was a lot going on in the religious liberty space. And the CCCU and others formed a religious liberty coalition. And I met Melissa right then and there in the beginning of my new role in 2014, 2015. And I can't tell you how much I and the CCCU love the Seventh-day Adventists. You all have such a commitment to intellectual engagement. You have a commitment to winsome piety. You have a commitment to being the very best. There is never a doubt of who you are. When I work with Melissa, and I hope we say the same thing about the CCCU, when we're working in contentious spaces or secular spaces, no one has to guess where our commitments are. But I notice about my friends in the Seventh-day Adventist group that you lead with the fruit of the Spirit. And I just love that about you. And you have great vegetarian food. Just saying. And look at that organ. I mean, really. It's such a pleasure to be here. As she said, I'm Shirley Hoogstra, and I've been the president of the CCCU going on my 10th year. And I have the privilege of talking with you today about some of the things that Sam keyed up. How are we responding so that we can decrease this polarization and increase the kind of world we want to live in? So I'm going to tell you some things about Christian colleges and universities, and then we're going to go on to 6 examples that you are going to be so thrilled about, and it's just 6 of them, about what students are doing on Christian college campuses to be proactive about making the world we want to live in. So a couple of things. We have got 185 institutions around the world. I'm going to tell you about our distinctives. 140 in the US, 10 in Canada, another 30 around the world. And here's this little sliver. So Christian college campuses are right here, and we have an outsized sort of influence because people in the world want to really understand what religious people, what religious students think. So here you've got publics, 1,600 publics, 2,100 privates, and there are 1,000 institutions that actually had maybe a historic relationship to faith, or maybe they're faith-friendly. One of the things about CCCU schools, of which Seventh-day Adventists are a part, we have a distinctively integrative approach. So if you came to a Christian college like Walla Walla or Oakwood or our own dear Southern Adventist school, you would find that Christian truth is a top distinctive. You're not going to miss the integration of faith and learning in those classes. And then the second thing that you're not going to miss on a Christian college campus is this idea of Christian formation, the discipleship of a student. It's not somewhere tucked away or maybe just in a building. It is integral. We want our students to love Jesus more after 4 years than they did when they came in. Isn't that right? And then this Christian witness. So is it just to have a great experience on a Christian college campus? No, it is to have a global mindset, a Christian witness, whether it's in your first job, whether it is in your family, whether it's the way you're serving your church, whether you're a volunteer, or whether it's an international opportunity. This is what David Brooks said about Christian colleges. Well, he was writing a number of his books. He would often be on Christian college campuses, giving some presentations, talking to students. And in 2016, he came back to our president's conference, and he said this about it, unsolicited. This is what he said about us. You, Christian colleges, have what everybody else is desperate to have, a way of talking about and educating the human person in a way that integrates faith, emotion, and intellect. You have a recipe to nurture human beings who have a devoted heart, a courageous mind, and a purposeful soul. Isn't that just wonderful? And isn't that what we want to do and be known for doing? And he said, and that's what people want, and no other set of institutions really can do it. A devoted heart, a courageous mind, and a purposeful soul. Now, how do then we shape students so that they are lower on the polarization scale and higher on what I want to call the fruit of the Spirit scale? And you get that, really, I'm going to refer again to Sam's work, because this is a national survey It's called the Nessie Survey, and they compare private, not-for-profit, public, and then CCCU schools there in yellow. And the question that they ask on this survey is, seniors reported that course discussions and assignments included diverse perspectives, political, religious, racial, ethnic, gender, etc., often or very often. And isn't it interesting, and I think that not a lot of people would think that it was the Christian colleges, right? We're not indoctrinating our students. We're in fact giving them diverse viewpoints because we actually can start from a place of truth and then say, well, what else do people believe? I think it's a very confident way to go into education. And then the institution emphasized encouraging contact among students from different backgrounds, social, racial, ethnic, religious, quite a bit or very much. And again, across the spectrum of all of higher education, Christian colleges are scoring the highest on that metric. How do we get to understand each other? How do we know how other people think and feel, believe, act? It's because proximity informs our perspective. It's what David French began our conference with. It's not just maybe what is true, it is how you feel about something. And this is something that I believe 100%. Christians have to be in the messiest places in the world, giving the kinds of solutions that are Christ-centered. Isn't that right? We're not going to run away from those because, first of all, it's a biblical mandate to do that. And second of all, we have the creator of the universe equipping us to do that, right? And he came, right, to the messiest place, the messiest problem in the world, which was to save us as sinners and give us eternal life. So the CCCU has a philosophy of working vertically and horizontally. What does that mean? Well, we're a member service organization. And so our members pay dues. We do 3 things for them. We do advocacy, we do leadership development, and we do communications, among other things. So that's what we always want to be. We want to do an excellent job for our campuses so that they have less stress, less worry, and they have more fun at their jobs. And then the second thing we do is we go broad like this. We want to have this horizontal impact. We want to be working with a lot of different kinds of people. We want to know what they think. We want to be able to share our story. We want them to know us better. We want to have partners and third-party endorsers. We want to have unlikely friends and allies. We say we want to be at the table. Because what is a couple of scriptures that mean a lot to me, and I'm sure they mean a lot to you first also. Love God above all and love your neighbor as yourself. Go and make disciples. Kindness leads to repentance, right? And always be prepared to give the hope that you have in Jesus Christ. How can you do that if you're not actually working horizontally, right? Giving that opportunity. So I'm going to give you 6 examples of what people are doing in order to bridge gaps, in order to decrease polarization right on our campuses. So let's start with the first one. There is a program that we work with in partnership with Interfaith America. Ebut Patel is one of our leading Muslim leaders in the United States. He started Interfaith America in order to help people, especially after 9/11, understand Muslim individuals. And so he and a man named Simon Greer came up with an idea about how can we do experiential learning between really different kinds of college students. Maybe college students that had preconceived notions of themselves. So I'm going to give you, it is 3:45. We've been working a lot. Time for a movie. Let's do that. This is going to give you a glimpse into this program. Oh, it didn't. Did it go? It's going on mine. Okay, so it's going on my computer, but maybe Matt can help me here. What? Okay, good. See, I think this keeps a speaker humble. Because even when you test them, it didn't go. Should we try again? It's really good. Sure. I'm gonna try something in a minute. Not that this is like way beyond my, but I'm gonna try to get in a different screen. Let's close that, and then I was gonna switch it to a. Let's close this one. Okay, yep, now just go here. Let's see if it works. You wanted to see those again. Okay. Mm-mm. I'm going to have you talk about yourself because I really don't want you to miss this video because it is so good. I think we have to go into presenter mode. That's there. Let's do display settings. Let's do that. No, let's go here.
Take the URL and put it in another browser and then come back to it. We had it here.
We did. We have. Yeah, let's go there. But it's splitting between the two. Let me start over. Oh, here we go. Patience. Okay. Thank you, Matt.
There's a culture of there's just certain things you don't say, and if you deviate from that, you will get called out on it.
People don't want to communicate across lines of difference. They want to hunker down with their friends where they feel safe and secure and validated. Shame on us for not equipping them to do something different. My name's Simon Greer. I developed a program called Bridging the Gap. It's a disciplined approach to how we engage with people productively, even when we have fundamental disagreements.
I think there are times that we screw up, but we can have a civil and respectful discussion.
Thank you for being real.
We decided to adapt Bridging the Gap to higher education that involved two campuses, Oberlin College and Spring Arbor University. We brought them together to see, is it really that bad?
There's a lot of people at Oberlin who think that engaging evangelical conservative ideas is bad discourse.
I had a hesitancy to share my faith because I wasn't sure if they would allow room for me to express my faith.
So I went out to Oberlin to observe, and I was blown away by what I saw. Simon's methodology works.
We focused on how to have hard conversations.
They talked about gay marriage, and they talked about abortion, and they talked about climate change. I mean, they talked about all of it. There were some disagreements.
Kind of had this awkward, tension between us.
He used the word colored, and it just, for me, I was like a recoil.
That got me heated.
Often we're listening, but now something bothers us, something upsets us. We disagree about something, and we have to try to communicate it.
Something that Simon told us was to sit down and think and not jump to conclusions and ask why.
Please just bless this time that we're together. Thank you for the larger group, more people we get to know.
It's just something to teach people a set of skills, help them train in those skills, and then watch them before your very eyes, apply the skills and have it work.
There's so much nuance and there's so much experiences that you don't know about behind a person's life.
I asked him, why did you use that word? And he said, well, I wanted to find something that was the most politically correct. And he and I came to an understanding.
He shared with me a very personal story that touched my heart.
I didn't think that my story would be important or impact people.
Bridging the gap, understanding that people are human.
Even though I had an assumption about what they would be, I found that it was the exact opposite. I know that I found lifelong friends.
I saw the students transcend differences.
When you saw people hugging and crying and saying goodbye, there's just no way around arguing. This was a great success.
Go find someone who you disagree with. Be curious about why they think what they think. And in the moment when they say to you the thing that you can't stand, reach out to them and say, tell me more about that. It is reflective of the rest of society. And the solutions we need in the broader society is the same prescription for higher education. Students are ready for that. I'm not saying all students, I'm not saying it's easy, I'm not saying the culture isn't resistant to it, but there are students who are ready to lead in a new way, in a different way, in a way that we know holds out much greater promise than the way many of our current leaders are trying to lead.
Isn't that neat? There, someone had a dream to put together a course for students. And in fact, it worked. I think that I've watched that film a couple of times, and I must tell you, the faces of those students, they were genuine, weren't they? And the hugs and the proximity and the understanding and the investment that the campus leadership made. So Spring Arbor is one of our conservative Christian college campuses in Michigan, and Oberlin is a fine institution. And the thought of Oberlin and Spring Arbor coming together and those students coming together to learn and the authenticity that resulted is just one small glimpse and one hopeful moment that it can happen more broadly. And that's what we want to continue to do. So let me tell you about another campus, Biola University in California. They started a Winsome Conviction Project in 2020. They said our mission was to facilitate large and small group conversations in which deeply held convictions would engage honest disagreements in a virtuous communication climate. That's a good goal, isn't it? Now in 2020, you and I both remember that, we were having the pandemic. There was just a lot of disagreement about how things should be. People were feeling stressed. There was so much unpredictability. And yet they said, and this is a Christian college, we first wanted to help Biola, but secondly, the broader Christian college and the public square. So they also did a Bridging the Gap exercise with Pomona College. Again, Pomona is a wonderful institution. It's got a progressive sort of mindset. Biola is a very conservative Christian college. They're very close together. Out of their project, which was just like the film I showed you, those two presidents became very close. And they shared a lot more in common than the things that were different. They wrote this book, Winsome Conviction, Disagreeing Without Dividing the Church, because what we know is what's happening in society is also happening in the church. We feel it in the church as well. And they said, wait a minute, Mollenhoff and Langer said, there are lessons from conflict theory and church history about how to avoid the dangers of, what do we know? Tribalism or groupism or groupthink, and how to negotiate different biblical convictions to avoid church splits and repair interpersonal ruptures. Christian unity, a biblical principle. So the Winsome Project did a Bridging the Gap experience with Pomona, and then this idea of the College Bowl. This is ongoing today. Our college campuses can do it. One of the things that happens in here is that different students from different college campuses sit down and they go over questions about how they agree and disagree. So what we have here is two college students, total strangers from different schools with different political leanings or backgrounds, were matched into a one-on-one guided video conversation to talk about the big goals of our country. Sounds like trouble, right? You think, oh, because don't you think part of the reason polarization is so prevalent is that we're afraid? We are afraid that it won't go well, that there'll be high conflict or arguments, or even worse, it would be awkward. Why do it? And so on college campuses, we have the opportunity to actually create experiences, give kids credit for it, and then they start to do it. And so to their big surprise, the student pairs found more agreement than they expected as the partners worked through those 17 questions. That's a good thing. Number 3. So we had the Bridging the Gap project, the Winsome project, and now this is a project that involves David French, Russell Moore, and Curtis Chang from a group called Redeeming Babel. And it's called the After Party Project. And what they mean there is maybe party affiliation shouldn't be our identity. Maybe our identity should be in Jesus Christ. So moving from ideology to biblical virtue. And this is a 6-session course that is currently being piloted in Ohio at Malone University. And it goes from the how versus what, the true us versus the them, and then our deepest fears and hopes will never be answered by victory of any political party or politician, but rather by the wedding feast of the Lamb, the return of Jesus Christ. Right? How can we get students involved in that kind of worldview? Well, David French and Russell Moore and Curtis Chang, along with many others, have created a 6-week online course that's going to be available to churches, by the way, and it's going to be available to college campuses. And you don't have to be a Christian college campus, you could be an InterVarsity club, a crew, or any actually course. So that's number 3. Here's number 4. The CCCU received some grant funding that we could then distribute to college campuses. And this belonging begins with us had the same idea. How can we get people to stop being in our corners and understanding each other through proximity? And so the CCCU put together what we call the Welcoming Toolkit. And it's a summary of really good work on Christian college campuses, some already happening and some where they were encouraged to do new things. So here are some examples of what people did. And here are the principles that they applied as they worked into their projects. And you've been hearing all of these same messages today from all of our speakers. You have to embrace complexity. They often say if it's a simple answer, it's often wrong. You have to ask questions to get at people's motivations. We heard that today. We have to listen more and better. We have to expose people to other groups, and we have to counter confirmation bias. So we applied those principles to some of these projects. Here's the first one. There was a college campus who took their grant and they started a project neighborhood house so that students, it actually was a church parsonage that wasn't being used anymore. And so they said to college students, how would you like to live in a group house and practice the kinds of things that those 5 different kinds of principles? And then as part of your project neighborhood house, you have to go out into the community and pick a community project where you'll have to do that. And it was successful. The project continues today, and students continue to want to live in community. The second one was a Christian, it wasn't a Christian college campus, it was one of the people in the project, said, we have extra dorm space. As you know, sometimes you have, the enrollment goes up and down. They said, what if we were able to house refugees that were newly coming into the country, into our city, and what if our students could help them with all the resettlement sort of things that happen when you're new to a country? And it was a huge success. Again, proximity informs your perspective on the immigrant, the refugee. Well, the third one was called a living library. So the library got a list of people who were willing to be checked out like a book for a conversation by a student. Isn't that fun? A living library. And so it was check out a human. Again, the beauty of being on a college campus, and our faculty members in the front here know this, you can assign things for credit, right? And all of a sudden you've got motivation to do things. And I mean, credit is valuable to a student, and the experience is valuable to the world. Now, it was that sort of thing, experiential, but then we got the arts involved. So some film students said, hey, we want to go in depth and produce a documentary about the immigrant experience. And so that's what they did. And it was shown on campus. It was available to others. It's now in their library. Very useful project. I thought this was an unusually clever project. What do we love to do? Eat. And what do we know about different cultures and people? Great food expressions, right? And so they created a cookbook, a cross-culinary experience, and it just wasn't the book. They actually had individuals come in and teach people how to cook their very best and most delicious things. And then they would sit around and eat, and then they'd publish the cookbook as well. People had so much pride in this beautiful expression of learning about each other. Proximity informs perspective. Another, through the arts, there is a play about what the Hmong people in Iowa had experienced over quite a few decades. So the play is named Vang, and this particular college has a very good theater arts program. And so they took that play and then they produced it on their campus, and they had many evenings of opportunities to experience that play. And then lastly, one of the schools, the Roseland neighborhood in Chicago, is actually a neighborhood that is a beautiful mix of different cultures and ethnicities. That is a movable mural. Each one of those faces is on a wooden block, and it can be brought to different places and set up, and then each of those faces is a story, and it has been all over the country telling those stories, and it is an installation that you could put in your church foyer, that we had it at our 2022 conference in Dallas. It's been shown in art galleries. It's just a beautiful way, again, bringing people's stories to life. And our last example today before questions, many of our campuses have semesters abroad. And right now, you know that we are hurting for our brothers and sisters in Israel and Palestine. We have at the CCCU a Middle East Studies program. We call it MESP. It's been around for 30 years. Friday, the day when the Hamas terrorists went into Israel, we got a call because we had 14 students in Bethlehem. And we were responsible for those student lives and our staff lives. And they called and we said, please try to make your way back as soon as you can back to Jordan, because this program is located in Jordan. By God's grace, they were able to pass through immediately and they arrived safely in Jordan. These students have decided to remain in the semester. And even though they were at the beginning of their Israel-Palestine week experience, where they live in homestays with Palestinian individuals, they live in homestays with Israeli individuals. And what we heard again from this morning is it's complex. And the students all of a sudden learn the complexity of this Middle East program, this Middle East situation, which now we see is really erupting because of unresolved, serious problems. They go back to Jordan, they hear from Jordan journalists, they meet in the homes of Jordanians, they are able to experience the beautiful cultures of the Middle East. Many of the students who go on this Middle East Studies program become professionals in the State Department. They become diplomats. They learn the language. This experience changes them forever. It is a huge investment to spend a semester in another country. And yet, God's call on their life is not by accident that they would do that. And I truly believe that the 14 students who are there today are never going to be the same and will actually be leaders in the conversations about how we hope someday the Lord will give favor to solve the intractable, seems like an intractable problem there in the Middle East. David French said today that Pete Wehner, one of his colleagues at the New York Times, is also a friend of the CCCU. And he had an opportunity to again write about Christian higher education and what our best self looks like. In order for us to be world ready, in order for Christians to lead in the messiest moments, we have to have an education that is described like this. One that refines our sentiments, that teaches us to cherish the true and the good, is a gift beyond measure. And at their best, this is what Christian colleges have to offer. And it's a lot. Because we can talk about the true and the good because we have that in Jesus Christ. So I'm going to open it up for questions.
So, Dr. Hoogstra, what role do you see CCU institutions playing to sort of mitigate the polarization we see taking place across the country? Many secular colleges and universities are viewed as part of the problem. And so how can CCU institutions resolve or work to resolve the divide that exists in the country today?
All right, so how your question is that today the reputation for higher education is not at its highest. There's a lot of critique about what's happening in higher education as a whole. It's thought of as expensive. It's thought about as not allowing free speech on campus. At times, I think that people think that their student comes in and gets only one point of view. And this is where I think that in my remarks today, Christian colleges have a unique role. And again, even though we're small in the overall, we have a unique role to be an example, to be a witness about what is possible, both for students, for faculty. And then I believe that Christian colleges have to be more and more horizontally focused. That means that they have to be really in their communities. They have to be with the Pomonas and the Oberlins. They need to be able to say, look, humbly, we would like to be in conversation with you so we can learn from you, and maybe you would get a glimpse of what our values and our opportunities are. I think that the more students we graduate with the ability to have the skills that we saw with that belonging project, the better off the United States would be.
What do you view as the greatest challenge being experienced by Christian colleges and universities around the country?
Well, I'm going to just talk a little bit about a broader topic. I think the biggest challenge today for Christian higher education is the fact that we have to continue to be innovative about what students want today within a Christian mission. As you know, a lot of our Christian colleges, people work very hard. They often wear many hats. We don't have a lot of time to do research and development. So our faculty and staff are working very, very hard in order to do their teaching and research and scholarship in the same amount of time that everybody else has. And yet, what we know is that today's students and today's world needs continuing innovation around the kind of courses, majors, and minors that are necessary for the future. AI, for instance. Christian colleges should be leading in the ethical understandings and implications of artificial intelligence. In journalism, we had this great panel on journalism and on digital media. Christian college campuses need to be speaking into that in order to have the kind of world that we want. I think another aspect of challenges for Christian college campuses is just the financial sustainability. I know that all of you here already support your Adventist colleges, and I can't tell you how important it is, in addition to tuition and room and board, for those of us in the community, the larger church community, to say, look, Christian colleges are the antidote to the decay in society today. And if we are worried as parents and grandparents who is going to influence the future generation, who do we want to have influence them? The pastors, the professors, the peers on our campuses. Pastors, parents, professors, and peers who believe the same kind of commitments to Jesus Christ. That can happen as long as our campuses are really fully financially supported.
One final question. What would you say to a young person, a teenager, who is about to make that decision and they're choosing between a Christian college or a secular college? What would you say to them?
Thank you for that question. Like, that's my favorite question. I just give you a little background. I'm a K through 12 Christian student from when I was growing up, and then I went to a Christian college, and then I went to a secular law school. And here is what I would say first of all, trust the Holy Spirit. You can get a very good education in a secular campus. There's good Christian faculty there. There's going to be a church available. There's para-church opportunities. But here's what I would say would be even better. It would be even better if you said, for my undergraduate, for parents, that 18 to 22 years, this is when people are forming a worldview. And you want them to form a Christian worldview. You want to have your child have friends for the rest of their lives who they can call, and they will know they're going to share their values and their perspective and give wise advice. You want to have the discipling of your 18 to 22-year-old done by people who are committed to the same kinds of theological values and beliefs that you have. And this is what I would say. There is no limitation on your future if you go to a Christian college. David French goes from Lipscomb to Harvard. We have an institution just recently, Taylor University. All of their med school, pre-med students got into med school. People can go wherever they want to go after their Christian college experience. And it is very valuable at that point, I believe, to go to the secular next step in order for you to take your best self, your more mature self, and go into that graduate program, or to get a very good job. And one of the things that we know from employers is they always say, I want more of your students. And we know why, right? Because they have been trained up in a very holistic way to think of others first, they want to serve God, and they want to be the best example for Jesus Christ. So if you have an opportunity, after you've listened to the Holy Spirit, if it's nudging you, and you've done all of those good campus visits, you're going to never be disappointed in your Christian college choice.
Amen. Thank you so much. God bless you.